2017, the education sector in Nigeria struggled with mundane issues that many countries, even here in Africa, have overcome, such as strikes, poor infrastructure, obsolete methods of teaching, poor performance in certification examinations, and poor remuneration for workers.
Now, all of these problems only emphasize the decaying state of the education sector in Nigeria. A major event in education that has remained in the news is the Kaduna State Teachers Competency Test drama, which started within the year. Now, that incident has now degenerated into an all-out fight between the state government and the labor union, who say the planned sack of teachers who failed the test would be a wrong move. Now, other issues that were top on education includes the review of the Joint Admissions and Matriculations Board examination cutoff mark. The meager sum allocated to education in the proposed 2018 budget way below recommendations by the United Nations.
Now, the level of security in schools also became a major topic of discussion with the kidnapping of pupils from the Bonla Secondary School in Ekpe, Lagos. Education is the bedrock for the development of any nation. Where did Nigeria get it wrong in 2017, and how can the anomalies be corrected? These are some of the major questions we'll be asking this morning as Nigerians look forward to a greater year ahead. Joining us is the Coordinator, Education Rights Campaign, Hassan Taiwo. Good morning and Happy New Year.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Happy New Year to you.
Right. Now, let's get back to the overview of 2017. I remember the Igbonla kidnap was very major in education sector in 2017. Let's get into the overview of security before we even talk about other issues. From your assessment, what has really changed in the attention to security among schools right now?
Nothing much has changed, and that's the truth we must emphasize. Because the schools are located within our communities, and we haven't seen any improvement in security situation in our communities. We haven't seen any major steps being taken, either by the police authorities or by the government, to ensure that our communities are better policed and that we have the resources to ensure that people's lives are kept safe. And if that is the case, then we have a lot of reasons to be fearful, about the security of our children in the coming period. One of the demands we made at the period of the campaign for the release of the Igbola schoolboys was that this is the time for the Lagos State government, to call and convene an education and security summit to allow representatives of the trade unions, the NUT, communities, parents, the security operatives to come together to discuss about what needs to be done, because we must not think that government has all of the answers. The government representatives are there, in order to execute the programs of the people. They must constantly engage with the people to see what they think, so that from there they can also know what to do. But that has not been done since last year. We are operating on the basis of the fact that, yes, we have resolved that kidnap issue. It's not going to happen again. So we are back to the same thing that happened.
Yeah, but we heard that...
At the end of the year, didn't Lagos State put some kind of system in place to at least improve, to a large extent, the security situation in schools in Lagos?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yes.
There were some steps taken. But if those steps do not derive from me and you, from the parent, from the NUT, from the trade unions, from those who feel where the shoe pinches, then there's a reason to fear that some of these steps, will not be adequate. How many schools in Lagos State today have had their infrastructures, repaired? There are still many schools all around Lagos State with broken fences. There are still many schools in Lagos State with less security, so that on weekends you have street urchins coming to the school compounds to smoke in their hemp and carry out all kinds of nefarious activities.
And if that's happening in Lagos State, you wonder what's happening in other parts of the country, because our focus really is education across Nigeria, whether as it affects security, the quality of education, the quantity of it, possibly, and all of that. Okay, so 4% of the budget was allotted to education in 2017. That's 4% of 7 trillion naira, way off from the UNESCO recommendation of 25%. How seriously, really, do you think that government, down the line, not just this present government, takes education. I mean, I read a piece by some analysts recently who said, look, the question is not that government does not recognize the importance of education, because after all, they send their kids to the best schools abroad.
What they don't recognize is the importance of public education. Public, that is education that should be available to everyone. And this thing is ideological. Because what you see is that in every sector of the economy, government is pushing a certain opinion and program, which is that government has no business in providing social services. All of these things should be turned over to the private sector, whether in terms of privatizing them outrightly, commercializing them. And you need to begin to ask the question, at what point are we going to realize that there are certain areas of our life that government needs to take custody of? And we think in the Education Right campaign that public education remains that very important bedrock, of social economic development that cannot be left to the private sector, that cannot be commercialized. Because once you do that, it means that you make it impossible for a majority of people to be able to access education. And what it's going to mean is that you are going to have a huge number of people who do have access to education and who are there on the streets, causing all kinds of threats to our collective security. We are going to make our country much more unsafe, and we are going to have repeated social crisis. The bado cultism, the street crisis you have across the country today, with young people having no jobs, having no education, the drug use you have rising among young people today. These are products, of government policies on education, not funding it appropriately, commercializing it, turning it out to the private sector. We have a whole lot of private universities today, that are charging huge fees, hundreds of thousands. But most Nigerians cannot attend these schools. So you see a situation where huge numbers of people depend on the public schools. So when you are not funding those public schools adequately, they are bound to collapse. And that is what you are seeing all across the country today. The public schools have no adequate infrastructures. They don't have adequate lecturers. They don't have adequate non-academic staff. And you have all of this multitude of crisis, which was why last year, became a year of strikes and struggles across the length and breadth of that sector. Are we not going to have a repeat of the same thing this year? Those are the kind of questions we need to ask the government.
All right. It was in the same 2017, we heard the report from Rwanda that private schools are closing up. In fact, they tried to compete with the public schools,
and
but
they
couldn't. So they have to close up because government is investing so much in every aspect on public schools, and they are so attractive. And so parents will feel, what's the use going to a private school when we have, and then school, the cost of schooling was subsidized and everything is moving on well. Now, I wonder what Nigeria has to learn from that, because you said when it comes to education, it should be ideological, not to be left in the hands of private owners who are more or less business people.
Government has a lot to learn from that, especially from the point of view of the immense risk that this country has. It shows that if it can be done elsewhere, we can do it multiple of times here in this country. And we've been done before. There used to be a time when our LA primary schools were not just for the children of the working class, but you are likely going to find the children of the top politicians attending the same schools. So it meant that when teachers are on strike, both the children of the working class and the children of the top politicians will be at home. So you don't need so much pressure for your politician parent to know that they need to resolve this issue. But today, when ASU goes on strike, it is our children that are at home, not the children of all of these elements over there at the top. So it's ideological. And the ideology is that of capitalism, that government has no role in providing education, in providing social services. The private sector should do it. We need, and I'm talking of the working people, the trade unions, especially those, the universities and the economic sector, needs to begin to confront the government with a new set of alternatives. Government can fund education. That one is very clear. But how do you do it? Provide the adequate funds. But you can't just provide the funds and not ensure that those funds are well spent.
Exactly.
We have had numerous cases of corruption.
You
have that of Federal University of Technology, Akure. You have that of FUNAB. And this is just talking of just the few that happened last year. There have been many cases of, VCs, rectors turning to politicians, digging their hands into the treasury and just picking out money, which is why we are demanding that there must be collective management of our universities, of our school, and our education system.
Should there be some kind of strategy whereby you say, federal government, okay, you handle universities or the tertiary institutions, maybe states can handle secondary? and local government's primary schools.
But that's the,
Isn't
that the original?
That's the original.
Okay, that was the original plan.
That's the original plan.
So what happened to that plan? Because right now, take the tertiary institutions, for example, you have 36 federal universities, 25 federal polytechnics, 22 colleges of education, 104 federal unity schools. And more licenses have been given to private university owners. With all of this, I mean, if you had to calculate this is about 200 institutions right there.
That's still inadequate. We're talking about
inadequate in terms of numbers or in terms of quality. Shouldn't we be concentrating more on the quality and not just having university on every street?
We need to draw a priority right. We need to clearly ask ourselves, what is our standard in a country like Nigeria? I say inadequate from the point of view of the population of the country, but also from the point of view, of the possibility of the potentials given our resources.
So both in quantity and in quality is inadequate.
Because if you have just a few universities relative to the number of people who need university education, and they are just islands to themselves, very soon they are going to those universities.
But aren't we concentrating too much on university education? If you go to Germany, for example, the US, it wasn't Ronald Reagan that said some time back that the development that you find in a country like the US is dependent on people with vocational skills and not your university graduate. Shouldn't we begin to change
That's a different economy, and we must be clear about it.
Yes.
If you have vocational training in some of these European countries, you are likely to get a job. But you have PhDs in Nigeria, you don't even have a job. You don't have an economy that is actually growing. Look at the manufacturing sector, it's virtually non-existent. Look at the agricultural sector, despite all of the successes they are talking about. You have more of rich farmers, with big land, and you have a huge number of subsistence farmers. So that as a young person, if you want to have a future for yourself, you realize that you need to get to the top, education-wise, for you to be able to get the kind of jobs.
By getting that BSc or BA, only last year, one of the reality shows, actually, something went viral, where a university graduate did not know, or does not know what BSc stands for.
Stands for, exactly. But the point I'm trying to make, is that we cannot compare ourselves to Germany. If we want to begin the comparison, we should be comparing ourselves to fellow West African countries and look at where do we need, what do we need to begin to do. And the And the first thing is that we must link the education system with the economy. There must be a plan, and a vow that for everybody who has a certificate, whether at secondary school level, whether at tertiary levels, he must find a job. And for this to happen, it means that we can't leave our economy rudderless as we have left it, where the private sector determines everything. We must nationalize the key sectors of the economy, because that is what gives the government the right and opportunity and authority to be able to determine how the economy will grow, have a plan on how many jobs we want to provide in the next 10 years.
But should we just go to school, Hassan, to look for jobs or to be job creators ourselves?
See, we must not fall to these foreign entrepreneurial ideologies that does not work elsewhere. There's no other countries in the world, where government does not have plans to provide jobs for their citizens. Yes, those who have entrepreneurial spirits, they should have the right to flourish. But for those of us who want to work in the civil service, who wants to provide services to the people, as our doctors, as whatever, we shouldn't be scandalized, we shouldn't be blackmailed to think that we are waiting on government.
All right,
what is the role of government?
Yeah, there are also policies where, as far as you understand it, even if it means paying salaries, there's so much also generated from salary payment, and as the case may be. So everyone cannot be an entrepreneur and job creator.
Or a job seeker.
Exactly. Well, we have to leave it here right now. Hassan Taiwo, coordinator of Education Rights Campaign, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
And we look forward to a brighter 2018 in the education sector.
We hope so.
Thank you. Right.